Hey, what's up, Superdads? So I'm here today to talk to you about how to never waste another set, how to make sure that every set that you are doing is actually producing a result that you want. Let me start by sharing with you a quote from John Wooden, the great basketball coach. Never mistake activity for achievement. I totally agree with what he's saying here. I'm going to refine it a little bit for my purposes in this video to something more like movement is not the same thing as progress. So that formulation of the idea, I think, gets really to the heart of why I prefer a high intensity approach to training as opposed to a high volume approach to training. And I'm doing the little air quotes in case you can't see the video for some reason. Exercise volume is not the same as exercise related activity. Exercise volume is something very specific because exercise is something very specific. Exercise is something that you do with the intention of improving physical capacity. Now, if you're doing sets where, they're warm-up sets, you're not pushing them anywhere close to failure, you're not driving any sort of adaptive stimulus, that doesn't necessarily count as exercise volume according to this definition. That would just be exercise related movement or exercise adjacent movement or exercise supplemental movement, something like that, because it's supplementing the movement that actually does qualify as exercise. That is the movement that's going to drive some sort of adaptation towards increased physical capacity. So high intensity training is not necessarily low volume training because it's just spending most of your time trying to achieve the kind of movement that actually qualifies as exercise. We're trying to maximize the amount of time that we spend on movements that are going to drive physical adaptation towards increased capacity, right? So really, high volume training isn't so much high volume training as it is, and it's been called this by other people, so credit where credit is due, low efficiency training would be another name for it. Now I came up with my own possible names for it. Take whichever one you like. Wasted movement training would be another one. Or this one I'm particularly fond of because it's kind of a little bit of a jab. That would be high indulgence training, because for so many of the people who do this kind of training, it's more about indulging their ego than it is about producing any sort of progress or achievement in the end, right? So high indulgence training is what I'll be calling it because I think it's funny. So now that we've established that, let's get to how to never waste another set. How to never waste another set is pretty simple. You need to be challenging yourself with every single set that you do. Now, let me be very clear. I am not suggesting that you don't do warm-up sets. If I'm going to be, back squatting some appreciable amount of weight and trying to push it to failure, you better believe that I'm going to do a warm-up set or two because I want to send a message to my body about what's coming so that it can get ready. I want to pattern the movement so that I'm ready, and that when we get to it, that I'm proficient at that movement, so that I'm not doing it in a way that's going to limit my ability to put out force, or in a way that's going to get me injured. Okay, so warm-up sets absolutely have a place. So then what exactly I'm talking about? Well, I can think of three pretty obvious ways in which you could challenge yourself. The first one is going to be probably the most obvious one, and that is you're challenging your physical abilities. You're challenging your strength, you're challenging your stamina, whatever it is, but you're pushing it to the point where your body is getting that adaptive stimulus and it's going to respond by increasing capacity. So that's one way to challenge yourself. This is really any set that you take proximal to failure and spend any appreciable amount of time in that proximity to failure. So that would be one way, challenging your physical capacity. Okay. The second one is going to be challenging your proficiency. Ooh, okay. So if you're doing a warm-up set, it shouldn't just be, I'm getting blood flowing, I'm getting the joints warmed up, that sort of thing. If you really mean to never waste another set, if you really want to get the most out of your training time, look at the warm-up sets as proficiency sets. treat them as though you are trying to practice a skill, because really that's what it is. That's what so many of these movements are. And even if you're doing it on a machine, there's less skill involved, but there's still a skill involved. And even if you're doing isometrics where you're not moving and you're doing sets for whatever reason that are below 70% of the amount of force you're capable of putting in, right? You can still treat those as proficiency sets, because trust me, there are different alignments of your body. There's different ways to activate your muscles that are going to produce more or less force, that are going to feel better or worse. And so there is a proficiency even to isometrics. So those are your proficiency sets. Challenge your proficiency. Now, when I said or challenge your proficiency, I mean that as a sort of connector in symbolic logic, where it can be this one or this one and this one. So or means and or. So obviously when you're doing a difficult set, a physically challenging set, right, a set to failure or something like that, you should also be challenging your proficiency, and you should be keeping both of those in your mind at the same time. Finally, there's a third way that you can never waste another set, and that is by challenging your ability to pay attention, to attend to what it is that you're actually doing, to be present with what you're doing. Now, this is going to, be overlooked by almost everybody, because this is not the kind of culture that we live in. But maybe I've said this before, I like to listen to podcasts when I am working out. It's one of the things that helps me really look forward to working out, to listen to my favorite podcast. But the truth of the matter is, I almost never remember anything that happens in those podcasts, because anytime I'm actually doing a movement, an exercise, I can't really take in what's being said, because I'm so focused on what it is that I'm doing. So it's really just the in-between, the changing weights and stuff like that, where I pick up snippets here and snippets there, right? So really focusing, challenging your attention. And this is something that will pay huge dividends elsewhere in your life, because your ability to focus, to pay attention, to be present. I mean, there are few things that are more powerful in improving your life than improving your abilities or capacities in that space. Okay, and that's one more reason why I prefer high intensity training, because if you're doing high indulgence training, the amount of time you're spending doing that thing makes it very difficult to stay present, to be with the movement for the entirety of the whatever you're doing it for, an hour or something like that, right? And you're taking all these breaks and you're looking at your phone in between and all this kind of stuff. If you're spending 30 minutes and 20 minutes of that is really concentrated time doing the actual exercises that you're focused on, well, then there's a much greater chance that you're able to bring your full presence, your full attention to what you're doing. Okay. So I hope that was helpful for somebody out there. You can check out the programs down below. There is a free one, as well as the other ones that are, Dumbbell and Bodyweight, that are easily done at home, as well as one for people in advanced stage. The Facebook group is down there. And if you really want to get yourself going here, you can always book me for a coaching call real quick. Totally free. Just want to meet and talk to you and find out what's up for you and see how I can help. Okay? Take it easy, everybody. Have a great day.